ECOWAS has lifted wide-ranging sanctions imposed on Mali. This comes following the announcement of a 25-member transition government in the country. In the statement announcing the lifting of sanctions, the chair of ECOWAS Authority and Ghana's president, Nana Akufo-Addo, called on the government to comply with other demands by the regional body, including the dissolution of the ruling military council and release of detainees. He said the junta has explained in a transition charter that the vice president is in charge of defense and security, but would never replace the transition president. Military officers occupy 4 key portfolios for national security, defense, national reconciliation, and regional administration in the new government. An African affairs analyst, Dayo Fagbulu, joins me on the news to discuss this. Good to have you join us, Dayo Fagbulu.
It's a pleasure.
Let's get your reaction to this. After weeks of negotiations, ECOWAS has now lifted sanctions placed on Mali after the coup, and is also calling for bilateral partners to resume support for the country.
Well, as you know, there's an ECOWAS protocol of 2001 for governance, good governance and democracy. Basically, all ECOWAS were doing, or the ECOWAS states were doing, was following that protocol to the letter. It required that, all political prisoners must be released, for starters, and then there must be a program to go back to a democracy, basically. Now, that's all they're implementing. Now that these protocols have been complied with, all they're simply doing is releasing them from all other obligations, the sanctions they've imposed on them, releasing them from it. Basically, one of the things they also had to do was, for the transition to democracy, they had to appoint civilians. They could be ex-military, but they had to be civilians as we speak. They have complied with that, and ECOWAS has remove the sanctions on them. But
have they complied with that, though? Because a lot of people are worried that when you look at the 4 key ministries went to military, for example, defense, security,
right,
national reconciliation, and regional administration, all of that went to the military. So have they really satisfied all of those procedures and processes?
There are 2 core areas that are important under this particular charter we talked about, this protocol, the ECOWAS protocol of 2001 that we talked about. One, the president and the prime minister have to be civilians. They could be retired military officers, but they must be civilians. They cannot be military officers. Acting military officers. They have complied with this. And it's on the basis of that sanctions were removed. It's very simple. The other issues are not, they're not exactly in the protocol. And that's why they're not important to the sanctions being removed. That's what the issue is. They have complied. The minister, the president, and the prime minister are civilians. And that's all that's important.
So let's bear in mind that this is just a transition group. They're supposed to organize election in
18 months.
In 18 months.
Right.
And here you have everyone represented. For example, you have the people who called for, who protested before the coup, the group that protested before the
yes,
coup. You also had the people, the groups that signed the 2015 agreement also present in this
right,
transition committee. So what happens in 18 months when elections are held and everyone has to go back to not having a part or playing any role in government?
I think what they have done, of course, you know that all the bilateral partners and the multilateral partners, as they said, have been asked to support them. And this includes the Americas, America itself, the United Kingdom, the Euro Union. Basically, what they're saying now is they are going to be monitored by these people collectively. Now, no matter what happens, everybody's going to take a position. There'll be winners and there'll be losers. But the object now is to make sure that they return to a democratic process properly, it's done properly, and that they will monitor them. Whatever the outcomes are, people will have to take it at that, because it's the best solution, it's the area of less resistance that they have taken.
Security is also a problem here. Would this guarantee security for the people of Mali?
Well, the military, the members of the military junta, ex-military officials, and civilians are also involved in this transitional committee. So definitely we're saying all parties are represented. It's the best they can do. The military are there to protect them as usual. They claim they were the CNSP claimed that they were acting on behalf of the people to get them out of whatever problems existed. So yes, Security is already involved in the whole process. ECOWAS also, like I said, is the supervising body, and all the bilateral and multilateral partners. All these groups will provide as much security as is needed.
Bearing in mind that the CNSP has not been dissolved.
Well, one of the agreements for removal of sanctions is it will be dissolved. All political and military prisoners will be released. Those are the conditions. That's the agreement.
But that hasn't happened.
Yes, it hasn't happened. But you must remember that they've had meetings. They had meetings on the 15th of September with the military junta, and they have made agreements to this effect. So, sanctions are lifted on condition that they will comply with these arrangements. So, I guess that is what's going to happen. They're going to follow up and release the political prisoners and dissolve the junta as agreed.
We'll see how things play out in Mali in the coming days and the role that ECOWAS will continue to play. African Affairs analyst Dayo Fagbulu, thanks for talking to us.